This is Recipe for Sleep, a podcast where we dust off very old cookbooks and let them lull us into dreamland. I'm Erin Brindley, a chef and storyteller. I'm going to read to you from an old cookbook full of recipes and stories, and hopefully it's just interesting enough to keep your mind from ruminating, but just light enough that you can let it go when sleep arrives. Tonight, we are still deep in the pages of 1894's The American Pastry Cook, a massive instructional tome written for hotel and steamboat cooks. We've only gotten through the first 100 recipes, and tonight we will read 36 more recipes for ice creams, sherbets, and frozen punches. It's 91 degrees today where I am, so that feels right. As always, our author, Jessup Whitehead, intersperses the recipes with quotes and anecdotes, providing some forgotten history and vintage context that is always so fun. A tiny bit of it is in French, which I do not speak, so I beg your forgiveness for the tangle of syllables I try to keep sweet and soothing. Hopefully, you will have already drifted off to sleep by then. Now, it's time to put away anything you were doing and snuggle deep into your sweet covers. Softly close your eyes and imagine the kitchen of your mind. There are 2 cupboards there. Yesterday's cupboard, for all the things that have already happened that your mind wants to chew on. And tomorrow's cupboard, for all the things you're going to do or what's going to happen later. It's time to put everything away in those cupboards. Imagine closing each one. You made it to this cozy, quiet time of day where there's nothing to do but listen to me read old recipes to you until you drift off to sleep. 101. Strawberry ice. 2 quarts of strawberries, red, ripe, and sweet. 2 pounds of sugar. 3 pints of water. Cover the strawberries with sugar and let them remain some time to form a thick, red syrup. Pick out a few of the berries to be mixed in the ice at last. Rub the rest through a strainer into the freezer with the syrup and add the water. Freeze without much beating if a crimson ice is wanted, and add coloring if necessary. Throw the reserved berries on top of the strawberry ice in the freezer and mix them in when the ice is to be served. 102. Currant ice. Make currant water ice the same as the strawberry ice preceding, except that no whole fruit need to be saved out. Cooked or canned currants are not suitable, being too gelatinous and of poor color, and only the best and ripest of the fresh fruit should be employed for this purpose. The most luscious currants do not grow in America. 103. The hotel pastry cook has very little need of artificial coloring. The rich colors of the various fruits in their season may be preserved with but slight trouble by taking the surplus juices and boiling them with plenty of sugar, often in the same kettle the fruit was cooked in for pies, and straining the syrup into bottles. Such syrups will keep a long time, and while the writer is well aware that any elaborate process of the sort would never be put in practice in hotel work, he can recommend the seizing upon such things as come to hand this way as positive labor-saving expedients. A bottle of strawberry or raspberry syrup, put away at an odd time, comes splendidly into place with a freezer of cream in the winter or spring. 104. Strawberry ice cream. 2 quarts of strawberries, red, ripe, and sweet. 2 pounds of sugar. 2 quarts of cream. Cover the fruit with the sugar and mash them together and rub the fruit and syrup through a sieve into a bowl, adding a cupful of water to the pulp at last. Half freeze the cream by itself, and then add the strawberry syrup, and finish the freezing as usual. 105. Pineapple ice. 2 cans of pineapple, 2 pounds of sugar, 2 quarts of water, 6 or 8 whites of eggs. Strain the juice from the cans into the freezer. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar in 1 quart of water, and throw in the pieces of pineapple and set them on ice. When the syrup is nearly frozen, add some red fruit juice or coloring to make it rose pink, and the whipped whites beat and freeze again. Throw the pieces of pineapple on top, cover down, and let remain till time to serve, then mix them in. The canned pineapple is generally riper and sweeter than the fresh fruit that is sent into the northern markets. When the latter is used, it should be cut up, have hot syrup poured over, and allowed to steep till cold. 2 cans contain about 1.5 pounds of pineapple. The juice of 1 or 2 lemons is sometimes added to the pineapple ice when the fruit is very sweet. Pineapple water ice or sherbet. 106. The same proportions as the preceding receipt. Chop the pineapple small, scald it in the boiling syrup, then pound it through a strainer with the syrup and a remaining quart of water into a freezer. Freeze, add 4 whites of eggs, and beat it perfectly white. 107. Pineapple ice cream. Make the same as directed in the preceding receipt, with 2 quarts of rich cream instead of water, and use no eggs. Pineapple syrup or pulp poured into cream will immediately curdle it. The cream must be nearly frozen first, then the pineapple added to it and the freezing finished. 108. Frozen coconut custard or coconut ice cream. 3 quarts of milk, 18 ounces of sugar, 15 yolks of eggs, 1 pound of desiccated coconut, the sugared kind, free from the oil and rancidity is best. Make the custard as usual and stir in the coconut while it is still warm after straining. Freeze and beat as usual. A little lemon or orange flavoring can be added. The ordinary ice cream or starch custard can be used in the same way as well. 109. Concord grape ice. A reddish purple used for combinations and for Neapolitan or tricolored ices. 4 ounces of ripe Concord grapes, a cupful. 1 pound of sugar, 1 quart of water, juice of 1 lemon. Mash the grapes and sugar together raw. Add the lemon juice and water. Strain into a freezer with all pulp attainable, and freeze at once. The ice becomes lighter colored the more it's beaten. The lemon juice helps to brighten it. The grapes should not be scalded or cooked. 110. Wild plum ice. As good in its turn as pineapple or lemon. The plums must not be cooked, however. 1 pound of wild plums, ripe and sweet, red or yellow. 1 pound of sugar, 1 quart of water, 4 whites of eggs. Mash the plums and sugar together in a bright pan. Add the water and rub the pulp and syrup through a strainer into a freezer. Freeze. Add the whipped whites and beat up as usual. It makes a cream white ice It may be colored with a little boiled red plum syrup or otherwise. Wild plum ice of sweet plums may also be made by the directions given for pineapple ice cream. The flavor is very good. 111. The cook wanted to make a tapioca custard ice, but the appearance of it on the bill of fare bothered him. He knew it was good, for sometimes the tapioca cup custard had become half frozen where it was set in ice to get cold, and it was extremely rich. He knew there was such a thing as iced pudding, but then it might be taken to mean only pudding iced over like cake. And besides, ice pudding should be of 2 parts, cream and fruit. This was at a sulfur springs, down in a warm state, where they had ices of some sort for every dinner, every day, during 3/4 of the year, and 2 kinds on Sundays. And the repetitions of ice cream and lemon sherbet became extremely tiresome. So he concluded to put it on the bill of fare, frozen tapioca pudding. But the people who ate the dinners were not tired of ices, and the eating of them had become a sort of habit, and to have left out the ices would have seemed as strange as to have left out coffee or bread. And when the young colonel, who was always ready to penetrate a witticism, remarked significantly that if there was one thing he did love, it was ice cream, and if there was one thing he did despise, it was cold pudding, everybody looked at the bill of fare, and the young ladies said, "Oh dear." But the brigadier general said he had half a mind to try it and see what frozen pudding was. And the old lady said he needn't be a bit afraid, for everything they made there was good. But while they were talking, the judge, who was wanted at the courthouse again, had had his brought in, and he spoke up and said they couldn't fool him, it was ice cream. Then the young ladies said again how very, very ridiculous, and they might bring them a little, please. And it ended badly, for through this unwanted advertising of the article, it gave out, and there was not over half enough to go around. But, begging the judge's pardon, it was not ice cream now, was it? 112. Frozen tapioca custard. 3 quarts of milk, 20 ounces of sugar, 6 or 7 ounces of tapioca, 2 ounces of butter, 12 yolks or 8 whole eggs. Flavoring: 1 cupful of thick cream to whip in at last. The pearl tapioca is the most suitable. If the large grain sort is used, crushed on the table with a rolling pin, then sift away the dust. Steep the tapioca 2 hours in a quart of milk cold, but set it in a warm place. Boil the rest of the milk with the sugar in it. Then add the steeped tapioca. Cook for 15 minutes. Stir in the butter, then the beaten yolks, and take the custard immediately off the fire. Cool, flavor with vanilla or lemon, and freeze like ice cream. And when nearly finished, add the cup of cream whipped to a froth and beat well. 113. Frozen rice custard. Same as the preceding. Wash 6 ounces of rice in several waters and cook it in the milk. May be flavored with a stick cinnamon. If made with rice previously cooked, pass it through a colander. 114. Frozen sago custard. Same as the tapioca custard. Steep the sago in cold milk first. It will then cook in a few minutes. 115. Apple ice. To be served in combination with a frozen custard such as the preceding 3. 20 ounces of cored and sliced apples. 12 ounces of sugar. 1 quart of water. 1 lemon. Use for this purpose only ripe and sweet apples. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and a cupful of water, and throw in the apple quarters or slices and the lemon. Cover with a lid and simmer slowly till done without stirring or breaking. Strain out the apples and set them on ice. Add the balance of the water to the syrup and freeze it without much beating. Then throw in the apples and finish the freezing. This makes a whitish ice. The apples should not be frozen very hard. Frozen compotes of pears and oranges. For the same purposes as the apples preceding, can be prepared the same way. The object of stewing fruit in thick syrup is to prevent it from breaking out of shape. The syrup can then be diluted as desired. The quantities in all these receipts are calculated for the average or probable orders of 50 persons, having a varied bill of fare to choose from. When 2 ices are to be served in combination, the quantities of each, of course, are reduced in proportion. A liberal rule is to provide a quart before freezing for every 10 persons, and the freezing process should increase its volume considerably. 117. Lemon ice. 8 lemons, 3 pounds of sugar, 3 quarts of water, 8 whites of eggs. Grate the rinds of the lemons into a bowl and squeeze in the juice. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and half the water and pour it hot to the lemon zest and juice, and let remain so till cold. Then add the rest of the water. Strain the lemonade into a freezer, freeze as usual, and at last, whip the whites to a firm froth. Beat again and freeze again. The scalding draws the flavor of the lemon. It should never, however, be boiled, and fewer lemons should be used when they are large. The ice is perfectly white. 118. Saratoga ice cups. For the following very easy method of serving ices ornamentally, there should be provided a sufficient number of tin drinking cups, made like tall tumbler glasses, to serve as molds. They need to have no rimmed edge. Their slight flexibility makes them better than glasses to get the shell of ice out of. The commonest thin tumblers will answer, however. Take 4 dozen tumblers and set them in a freezing mixture of ice, pounded extremely fine and well mixed with salt and a little brine from the freezing tub. The freezing mixture may be in a common wash tub or wooden box, and no deeper than the tumblers. Fill the glasses with thin strawberry, pineapple, or lemon syrup, or with any of the preparations of fruit ices. Cover over the top of the tub with a tablecloth and leave them to freeze. In from 15 to 30 minutes, the glasses or molds will have a coating of ice inside, perhaps 1/8 of an inch thick. The unfrozen syrup should then be poured out and the glasses returned to the freezing mixture for the inside of the coating of ice to freeze perfectly dry and crystallized. The freezing may be hastened by gently stirring the freezing mixture among the tumblers with a stick and by turning the tumblers with the fingers. When it is time to serve, wipe outside of the glass or a mold with a cloth dipped in tepid water and turn out the shell of ice. Fill it with a curacao or caramel or nut ice cream, or any other of a different color from the cup itself, or with a pure frothed cream, sweetened and flavored and frozen in the same ice cup, set in a sorbetiere. Different colored cups may be made with the green syrup of pounded muscatel grapes, with Concord grapes, cherries, etc. Observe that the less sugar these syrups contain, the easier the cup shape will be to freeze and the slower to dissolve. They last longer on the table than the ice creams they are filled with. Ice cream in shape of eggs. A small number for a party table can be made without molds by using eggshells of the largest sort. Procure some broad rubber bands from the stationers, such as are used for binding bundles of letters, etc., and 1/2 inch in breadth. Empty the eggshells by making a hole at each end. Fill them with ice cream, soft and just freshly frozen. Draw the rubber bands over them so as to close the holes. Brush over with melted butter besides to close all crevices against the salt, and drop them into the freezing tub and cover with the finely pounded ice and salt. 119. Surprise ices. A more elaborate form of the foregoing egg shapes. Fill the shells with a white ice cream only partly frozen and fluid. Close with the rubber bands and butter and immerse them in the freezing mixture about 15 minutes for a shell of cream to form inside. Then wash off the outside, remove the bands, pour and scoop out the cream that remains unfrozen in the middle, and place the shells in a freezer well packed in ice and salt to freeze dry and crystallized, as already directed for ice cups. After that, fill with chocolate ice cream or yellow frozen custard. The variations are endless. 120. Biscuit ices or ice cakes. Biscuits, glaces. Ices, extra sweet and rich, in little paper cases made to imitate cakes, sometimes with a brown crust on top as if baked. Very handsome little rice paper cases can now be procured for this and similar purposes. Fill them with any kind of ice, or with a number of different varieties. There is no rule as to kinds, but nut creams, caramel, chocolate and strawberry ice creams, and the sponge ices to be mentioned further on are the most suitable. Smooth over, roll some macaroons to powder and sift that over to give the brown appearance. Then place the ice biscuits in a freezing box to remain till time to serve. Small quantities of ice creams, etc., for biscuits, glaces, and for lining a mold can be frozen without the trouble of a regular packing of a freezer for each kind in any sort of deep tin vessel set in a tub of ice and salt, by rapid stirring with a spoon or paddle while the vessel is kept in motion with the other hand. A quart in each can be generally frozen in 10 or 15 minutes. Ices for biscuits glaces are made with 1 pound or 1½ pounds of sugar to a quart, have a glossy appearance when well worked, and draw from the spoon like pulled candy. 121. A freezing box. It is a simple and easy matter to freeze ice cream in a mold that can have the lid put on, be sealed and dropped into the freezing tub from which the ice cream freezer has just been removed. A freezing box involved the use of a larger amount of freezing material is, however, indispensable for some articles. An empty ice cream freezer with the lid on, packed around and on top with ice and salt, is an example of what is wanted. A glass of cream placed inside might be frozen solid in an hour or two, but something more spacious can generally be improvised, such as a broad and shallow boiler set in a tub. The article must have a lid that will admit of ice and salt being packed all over it without a danger to the contents. Now I have lived long enough to know that each generation says the same thing and is laughed at for its pains by the generation following. Savarin Preface. We have adhered closely to one of the highest principles of the best cook, which the present age, or perhaps that of Heliogabalus, hath produced. This great man, as it is well known to all lovers of polite eating, begins first by setting plain things before his hungry guests, using afterwards by degrees as their stomachs may be supposed to decrease to the very quintessence of sauces and spices. By these means we doubt not but our reader may be rendered desirous to read on forever, as the great person just above mentioned is supposed to have made persons to eat. Fielding, Preface to Tom Jones, 1751. There is no doubt the delicacy of our manners could not suffer the Roman practice of using vomitories, but we have done better, and reach the same end by a method allowed by good taste. We have invented dishes so attractive that they unceasingly renew the appetite, yet they are at the same time so light that they flatter the palate without loading the stomach. We have arrived at such a point that the calls of business did not force us to rise from the table, or want of sleep interpose. The duration of our repasts would be almost unlimited, and there would be no fixed data for finding out what time might elapse between the first glass of Madeira and the last tumbler of punch. Gastronomy, 1825. Although this kind of ice is seldom served, I thought it best to describe it. It is just possible that, in this transition period, we may see an attempt made to improve the indifferent quality of the refreshments now served at evening parties, and then such delicate preparations as these ice froths will be in request. They are cool to eat without freezing the palate. They are perfectly wholesome and suited to the weakest digestion. Jules Gouff, 1865. Even if we do the same things as the ancients did, we do them in a different manner. Savarin's Preface. 122. Iced froths. Mousses glacées. These ices often appear in the menus of banquet served at Delmonico's. They are whipped creams variously flavored. The froth is piled in glasses, which are then set in a freezing box where it is allowed to freeze without any manipulation. Double cream must be used, that is, cream skimmed from the top of cream. It should be cold and froth easily. Sweeten and flavor it like any ice cream preparation, and churn it in a pail with whipped churn, such as may be procured in 8 tinners, or with a Dover egg beaten in a shallow bowl. Take off the froth, place it on a fine sieve to drain, and when all is whipped firm, pile it in the glasses it is to be frozen and served in. Maraschino, chocolate, coffee, strawberry, lemon, and vanilla creams are suitable, but need to be more highly flavored than the ordinary ices. It will be found a great aid if all the operations can be performed in a cold place. For the pastry cook who makes sponge cake frequently, it will remove the obtrusiveness from 2 or 3 examples following to observe that they are nearly the same as ladyfinger batter before the flour is added. 123. Vienna glace biscuit, or ice cake. 1 pound of sugar, 1 small cup of water, nearly half pint, 8 yolks of eggs, 1 pint of double cream, 2 tablespoonfuls of vanilla extract. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and water. Beat the yolks light in a deep bowl. Pour the boiling syrup to them and continue beating, with the bowl set in ice water till the mixture is cold and very light. Whip the cream to froth and lightly mix it with the other and add the flavoring. Sift powdered macaroon over the rice paper cases. Nearly fill them with the preparation. Powder over the tops and set the biscuits in the freezing case for 2 or 3 hours. The practice, so common in Italian and French cookery, of using syrups of varying density instead of sugar in making numerous other articles, as well as their especial varieties of cakes, is a remnant of ancient times. For the Italians and the French were fine cooks long before the art of making dry crystallized sugar was known. They used syrups and honey, and the handicraft transmitted from father to son has not wholly been revolutionized by the newer product. 124. Spongata, fromage glace, or sponge ice. Sort of frozen Tom and Jerry needs no milk or cream. 24 yolks of eggs, 6 whites of eggs, 2 pounds of sugar, 1 pint of water, 1 pint Kirschenwasser, or half as much maraschino, curacao, or a little peach brandy. Make a boiling syrup of the sugar and water, and pour it to the yolks previously beaten light. Beat the mixture till cool. Pour it into a freezer, and continue beating with the wire egg whisk, turning the freezer with the other hand till it is pretty well frozen. Then add the liqueur a little at a time, and then the whites of eggs whipped firm. It looks like a very spongy cake. Can be put in paper cases, large or small, or filled in a frozen charlotte. Another variety of the foregoing may be made by freezing 2 quarts of syrup with chocolate dissolved in it, and when nearly finished, add 12 whites of eggs whipped light and beating all together. The receipt for glacé à la crème napolitaine, originally promulgated by M. Bernard and Urbain Dubois from the Royal Palace at Vienna, perhaps some 30 years ago, had no reference to the brick shape of tricolored ices of the present fashion. 3 decils de crème doublée, 3 quarts de litre de sirop at 25 dig, 15 jaune d'œuf, 1 orange zest, approximately a pint of double cream, a pound of sugar, and a half a pint of water, 15 yolks, and orange flavor, concocted together by the Italian method, i.e. boiling syrup poured into the yolks, and the mixture beaten up like a sponge cake batter, the whipped cream incorporated with it, and the light product frozen quickly. 125. Neapolitan molds. These are in the form of a cigar box or brick. Can be made much longer if desired. If ordered from a tinner, have them made with 2 lids and no bottom instead of a box-like with 1 lid. Let the rim of the lids have a thick wire soldered onto the rest upon another wire soldered on the box, much the same as ice cream freezer lids are made. Neapolitan is the English word. Napolitain is the French. These are among the words that break us all up with our bills of fare. 126. Neapolitan ices or ice cream. Prepare 3 ice creams or creams and fruit, ices or sponge ices of different colors and flavors, and fill the mold, already made freezing cold, with them in equal layers. This is best done by filling one of the lids higher than its rim and leveling it off, then pushing the mold down into it and adding another 2 layers as evenly as possible. Put on the top lid. Draw half a dozen rubber bands around each mold to keep the lids in place. Fill the interstices with butter, and then place the molds in the freezing tub and cover them with pounded ice and salt. Let them remain about 2 or 3 hours to harden. Some regard should be had to the compatibility of flavors chosen as, for instance, lemon and chocolate do not taste well together, but chocolate and cinnamon and vanilla do, and an almond-flavored caramel cream is suitable with red grape and white cherry ices. Ices are said to have been introduced to France from Italy by Catherine de' Medici. 127. Italian fruit ice cream or iced plum pudding. Tutti Frutti. Make a quart of rich yolk of egg custard. Color it café au lait with 2 ounces of sugar burnt into molasses color and dissolved in milk. Flavor with a 1/4 pint of curacao, strain, freeze, and beat up thoroughly. Fill a quart measure with a mixture of different kinds of sugared fruits, candied dates, preserved watermelon rind, candied citron, seedless raisins previously steeped in a liquor, figs cut in pieces, some blanched almonds, or anything of the sort that is good. Mix these fruits with the frozen custard and pack down with ice and salt to remain while you prepare the molds. Make also 2 quarts of orange ice in another freezer. Add the whites of eggs in the usual manner and beat up white and smooth. Then spread evenly over the insides of 2 or 3 melon molds to coat them. Embed the molds in the freezing mixture, and when the coating of orange ice is frozen firm, fill up with the tutti frutti. Spread the orange ice also on top. Put on the lids. Secure with a number of rubber bands. Close all spaces securely with butter and place the molds in the freezing mixture to remain 2 or 3 hours. When to be served, wash the outsides with a cloth dipped in tepid water. Carefully turn out the tutti frutti onto a folded napkin on a dish. Lay a decoration of gelatin paste upon the white surface and serve. Or it can be served individually in slices the same as Neapolitan ices. Nearly all of the ice cream molds, except the half melon shape, require a lid at each end because the pressure of air renders it difficult to withdraw the ice from the tall shape tightly soldered at the top. 128. Gelatin paste for ornamenting ices. Make a clear jelly in the usual manner, then reduce it by slowly boiling it to little more than half. Color it as desired, filter again, flavor, and cool it on a large platter. Stamp out leaves, fern leaves, flower shapes, etc., and have them ready to place on the molded ices as soon as they are turned out. There are few terms of more uncertain meaning than the word sherbet. At first, perhaps a simple beverage of sweet fruit juice mixed with water and cooled with a handful of mountain snow, it has come to stand for anything from flavored sugar and water and lemonade to frozen champagne punch. 129. London sherbet. 3 pints of water, 1.5 pints of wine, port or any sweet kind, 2 pounds of sugar, 4 oranges, 2 lemons, 8 ounces of sultana seedless raisins, 8 whites of eggs, nutmeg, red fruit juice or other coloring. Make a syrup of the sugar and water and pour it hot upon the oranges and lemons all cut up in a bowl, and the raisins and half a nutmeg with them. When cool, strain the syrup into a freezer, add the wine and coloring to make it pink, and freeze and beat up with the whites of eggs as usual. Add the fruit slices at last and mix them in without breaking. Only good, thin-skinned fruit can be used this way. Exclude the seeds lest the sherbet be bitter. 130. Turkish sherbet. 1 quart of port or any sweet wine. 1 quart of water. 2 pounds of sugar. 2 lemons, juice only. 6 oranges, juice only. 8 ounces of blanched almonds. 8 ounces of muscatel grapes. 4 ounces of figs cut small. 4 ounces of seedless raisins. 8 whites of eggs. Cloves and cinnamon and a little coloring. Make a hot syrup of the sugar and water and pour it over the raisins and figs and 6 cloves and a small piece of cinnamon in a bowl. When cool, color pink. Add the orange and lemon juice and wine. Strain and freeze in the usual manner. Take out the spices and add the scalded raisins and figs and the grapes and almonds to the sherbet at last. Colette, a French captain and refugee, made a small fortune in New York about the year 1815 by making ices and sherbets. Says the chronicler, the women in particular never tired of this new pleasure, being especially astonished that they could be kept so cold at a summer heat of 90 degrees. If sherbets have any distinguishing feature in their composition at all, it is the admixture of jelly, either calf's foot or gelatin, recommended by some to give smoothness to the drink and substance to the ice. Mention has already been made of gelatin in ice cream. Either gelatin dissolved or finished table jelly can be added at option to the sherbets preceding, but in that case, leave out the whites of eggs, which are a substitute for calf's foot jelly. According to the lexicographers, the word punch is derived from East Indian panch, 5, having reference to the 5 ingredients of punch: water, spirit, sugar, lemons, and tea. But that is the old-fashioned punch to be drunk hot. 131. Roman punch is essentially a strong and good lemonade with rum in it and whipped whites of eggs and frozen. But almost everyone adds to it orange juice, wine or brandy, or maraschino, and sometimes spices and flavors. These are not essential ingredients, but only individual fancies. But it results that there is nothing that cooks in hotels have to make, that there are such various ideas about the composition of rum punch. Again, the caterers who have had the privilege of setting the fashions make other punches a la romaine, which are not Roman punch, but are made in the same manner with egg whites, or Italian meringue, which is boiled icing, and acts the same as whites, and frozen. Rum punch becomes Roman punch by being put through the process just mentioned. The places where rum punch, or something that passes for it, is served with a dessert in place of ice cream are far more numerous than where it is served as a course between the entrees and the game. 132. Roman punch. 2 pounds of sugar, 3 pints of water, 5 or 6 lemons, juice of all, zest of 3, 3 or 4 oranges, juice of all, zest of 1, 8 whites of eggs, half pint of Jamaica rum, half pint of Angelica or other sweet wine. Grate the rinds of 3 or 4 of the lemons and 1 or 2 oranges according to their size and ripeness into a bowl and squeeze in the juice of all without the seeds. Make a hot syrup of the sugar and a pint of water, and when it has cooled a little, pour it into the zests and juice and let remain until cold. Add the wine and the other 2 pints of water. Strain into a freezer, freeze. Add the whipped whites, and a few minutes before serving, put in the rum and beat to mix. To make a more expensive quality of punch, use good French white wine instead of water, except water enough to dissolve the sugar. Rub the orange and lemon zests on lumps of sugar, and the flavored syrup made with it need not be made hot. A larger number of lemons will be needed, and the rum is to be added at last, as in other cases. 133. Russian punch. 1 quart of black tea, made as if for drinking, 1 ounce in a quart of water. 1 pint of water, 1 pint of port wine, half pint of brandy, 1.5 pounds of sugar, 3 lemons, little caramel to color. Cut the lemons in small slices in a bowl and make a boiling syrup of the sugar and water, and pour over them and let stand till cold. Then add the tea and the liquors and strain the punch into a freezer and freeze as hard as the spirit in it will allow. Keep the lemon slices on ice and mix them in the frozen punch at last. This should be light ale colored. Use caramel if necessary. 134. Maraschino punch. 2 pounds of sugar, 3 pints of water, 2 lemons, juice only, 2 oranges, juice only, 1 pint of maraschino, 6 whites of eggs. Mix the sugar and water and juice of fruits together. Strain, freeze. Add the whipped whites and beat up. 135. Strawberry punch. Prepare strawberry syrup as directed for strawberry ice and add it to a pint of sweet wine and freeze. Color bright rose. 136. Imperial punch. 2 pounds of sugar, 3 pints of water, 1 ripe pineapple, 4 oranges, juice of all, zest of 2, 4 lemons, juice of all, zest of 2, 1 nutmeg, 8 whites of eggs, 1 pint of equal parts maraschino, noyau, kirsch, and curacao, 1 pint of champagne. Grate or mash the pineapple. Add the zests and the juice of the lemons and oranges, and pour on them the hot syrup made of the sugar and water. Let stand till cold. Then strain and press the syrup from the pineapple. Freeze and add the whipped whites as usual. And a little while before serving, add the liqueurs and champagne. Sweet dreams.